Cool. Thank you.
Okay,
Great. So now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. So this is on our website. I'll put all these links in the chat after I speak, and you'll also get them all as an email. But I've been working on a few different youth programs that we want to share with all of you, so you can share with the students and young people in your life. The most pertinent and one that's closest to now is our Worldwide Youth Climate Summit, which is going to happen on February 4th, which is a Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in New York. And what this is a 3-hour digital summit that is going to bring together climate concern, climate activist youth from all around the world. We have youth already signed up from 36 countries and 5 continents. And a lot of those young people are already part of our programs. They're working in our internship, as we'll talk about soon, or they've worked with us in past years. But a lot are brand new and just heard about us through colleagues or contacts, and we're really excited to have them. What we'll be talking about is the current state of global climate education and the role that climate education can play in galvanizing climate action. I'll be giving a presentation about that, and then we'll talk about the ways that the Worldwide Teach-In can serve in that general movement around the world, how this global movement can be a moment for climate education to increase in institutions globally. And with that, we will have some speakers from around the world who have participated in the Teach-In, youth speakers, who will talk about their experience. We'll also have regional breakout rooms, so folks in different regions can meet and network with other young people who are in this space. I think we have around 7 breakout rooms from truly all around the world, so we're excited about that. We'll also have organizing skills workshops in the 3rd hour. We're going to do one on branding, one on organizing 101, one on communications strategies. And then we'll do some random kind of networking breakout rooms. Part of the ask for those who are not already in our programs is to get involved in the teach-in. And what we're providing is an opportunity to organize a teach-in, which hopefully after the summit, they have a lot better idea of what that means, what that entails. And we're saying that if they organize a teach-in, Bard College will give them a certificate in climate organizing to recognize their work, and then they'll have a professional, something to help in their professional career that they can point to and say, I did this and it's pretty cool. So we're really excited about that. That's February 4th. Happy to talk about that more after. And I'll put the links in the bio, not a bio, in our chat after I'm talking. Many of you might already know we have a social media internship, which is already underway, but we have about, I guess, 200 interns all around the world who are working on the Worldwide Teach-In. Part of that is that we hope to connect them with people who are planning teach-ins, like some of you who are here today, to offer social media support or graphic support or any kind of support you may need. So I will put a form in the chat for those who are wanting that, and we can connect you with our interns. We have a lot of great interns from all around the world who are working with us. And then finally, we have a new webinar, which is going to be on February 9th, which is a Thursday in the morning and in the evening, New York time, so we can get everyone in that webinar. And that's for folks who haven't really been involved with us before, similar to the summit, but we actually added it because the summit was reaching capacity and we wanted another opportunity. But this is similar to the summit in the sense that we're going to talk about what a teach-in is, talk about what it means to organize one, and then offer the opportunity for young people to organize a teach-in in exchange for a professional certificate. So we're really excited about that, and we're excited about this opportunity for young people and the opportunity for them to earn a professional certificate that we hope will be of value to them, in addition to the valuable experience of organizing their community in an educational teach-in that engages their whole community on climate and justice. So those are our youth programs right now, and would be happy to talk about them more in depth and after Eben speaks in the Q&A, and connect all of you with these opportunities for yourself and your students. So Thank you, and I'll pass it off to Eben to talk about one more opportunity for youth through our programs.
Well, thank you, Tobias. And we've had a few people join us, so welcome to the conversation. We've just been hearing from Tobias Hess about the youth organizing opportunities that we've got coming up, and basically providing, so this would be for folks who are just joining us, providing chances to learn how to organize, teach in, and then we're providing a certificate in climate organizing for students who do that. So that includes the February 4th summit, and then the Climate 101 organizing session. So just a couple of other opportunities, kind of ongoing opportunities that we have for students. One is a workshop that I have been running twice a year now for about 12 years. It's called the C2C Fellows Program. And we do it, it's a day-long virtual workshop. We do it on the first Saturday of December and of March every year. And the thesis has sort of always been, we're going to give you a day's teaching of stuff they don't teach in college about how to get stuff done. And it's essentially, a very quick distillation of leadership education, which interestingly enough, really doesn't happen very much in colleges and universities. And there's whole disciplines of leadership education, in particular in the business school world, but it doesn't find its way down to undergraduate education. And essentially the day begins with a pitch competition. So students come with a 1-minute vision of how they want to change the world. Everybody presents, so we get the visions out on the table, and then we begin with vision, and then we talk about courage, networking, storytelling, and then asking people for stuff. So those are the 5 skills that we work on. And most of the day is really a storytelling workshop. So in the morning, we do spend some time on fundraising, but in the afternoon, every student develops a 5-minute story about why they're attending a sustainability leadership workshop. And it's got to be a real story. Like, when I was 8, my dad took me out chopping wood and there was this porcupine and, that sort of thing. And it really has 2 purposes. One is to get people comfortable with oral communication and recognize that, that the best way to do it is to tell stories, and personal stories. That's the most kind of engaging form of oral communication. And the second one is to learn that the way to do that effectively is to practice, because they actually tell the story 5 times and they see how much better it gets as they move through it. So it's a great afternoon, and plus you get to hear lots of inspiring stories from people from all over the world. So it's very energizing. And we would welcome your students in particular, people who are participating in the teach-in, to take advantage of that opportunity. And I will drop a link in the chat to the March 4th registration form if you want to circulate that to your students. Also on February 14th of this year, I also hold, like once or twice a year, I do a webinar on how to get a job in sustainability. So we'll be doing that again. It's, I think, helpful for students. There is a lot about vision in there as well, but there's also very practical strategy at the end for figuring out how to get an internship or a job this summer if you're a student or if you're intending to graduate. So those are a couple of additional kind of youth-focused opportunities. Any questions about the stuff that Tobias has discussed or that I've talked about?
I have one question, and I apologize because I joined you late. Many questions. I have to get up to speed. This is the first call I participated in, but when you talk about youth, I'm curious what age group you're talking about.
Tobias, what are you looking at?
Yeah, so we define it a bit broadly because, we just have all different types of young people who are interested. So in our summit, we have high schoolers who are very interested. but we also it's mainly college students, and we just don't. The only reason we don't say students is because we have some recent graduates who have been part of our program who still want to be involved, and we feel like we don't want to leave them out. So students or recent graduates who are still involved in sustainability and climate. Yeah.
Okay,
And that's who typically
helpful.
comes to the C2C as well. We sometimes get some graduate students as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep. And Richard, we'll get into the teaching details here in just a bit. This is kind of an overview specifically of the kind of the student and youth focused programs. Okay, any other questions? All right, well, for people, there's a few people who are new to the teach-in on the website, so let me give just a 5-minute overview of that. And then actually, Marianne, I'd love to hear what you guys are up to this year and kind of what your vision of your teaching is going to be. That would be real helpful. So I will share my screen, go to the Chrome, and you're going to see my calendar, which is the plan, but okay, so here's where we are. This is our teach-in signups this year. It's exciting to see activity all over the world. And the first thing you would do if you want to join the teach-in, and I don't know, Richard, whether you guys have done this yet, but you just zoom in here, or well, we can see whether you're here. We'll go to Connecticut. Maybe is that you?
I've not registered yet.
Let's see if anybody else has. Who is that in Connecticut? That would be the CCSU Geography Department. What is Central Connecticut State University, I assume?
That's correct.
Geography Department. So there we've got a registration. That might be you guys right down in Bridgeport. Maybe there's somebody. Yeah, somebody's registered at Fairfield. So we need to connect you with whoever's already registered.
That might have been, I guess that was me last night. I did that, yes.
Okay. All right, fabulous. Good. All right, you're all set. You've taken the first step, which is great. And so if you haven't registered yet, this is really the most important thing to do, just to make the commitment. You don't have to know what you're going to do yet. You just have to say, we're going to do something. And then you can always go in and edit this sign up after you've completed that. So the teach-in itself, teach-in really, we're just using that as an idea of a bottom-up conversation about climate solutions, right? We don't want it to be a keynote lecture or show a video and have a discussion. We really want to create opportunities for students to actually get to talk about where they're at in one format or another. We've got a lot of detail here in terms of we've got a 1-minute video on the website and then a 10-minute video that digs in more deeply to a bunch of ideas. It should be on or around March 29th. It doesn't have to be on March 29th. It could be that week. It could be the next week. We've got some stuff happening in May, April. But the thesis behind here is we're stronger together, right? That really is the basic idea that as climate educators, we're going to be able to leverage the power of a global network and reach more students than we otherwise would. And the basic philosophy of sort of how do we reach out beyond the 30 or so students who typically will attend a climate event, and that's maybe the numbers of students who are more or less, professionally engaged in their academic studies in climate change. And that is to tap into the network of teachers who are growing deeply climate concerned, right? A place like Fairfield or Clarkson, 70, 80% of the teachers, they're not climate experts. They don't teach climate change in their classes normally, but they're just worried about it. I mean, as an individual, for their families and their futures and for their students. And we want to create an opportunity for them to talk with their students about climate change from a disciplinary perspective. So, right, a psychologist can talk about climate denial and kind of how psychologists are helping people overcome climate denial. An economist can talk about how, economists are helping calculate the social cost of carbon to put, a cost on climate change impacts. An artist can bring in some examples of how artists are responding to climate change. And the idea is to get students thinking about the work ahead, right? That's the trick, right? How do we move beyond despair to repair? It really is embracing the idea that this is something we can do in our lives and be part of the army of people solving this problem as citizens and as volunteers, and actually choosing careers in this space, to consuming, responsibly and investing appropriately. So lots of kind of avenues in our lives over the coming decades to be part of the solutions. So we got a lot of different models on the website. The Make Climate class, the 3-hour teach-in, K-8 opportunities, faith congregations. We've got a comedy and theater options, which we'll be talking about. Is it next week or in 2 weeks, David? I don't know. But we've got a one night climate comedy opportunity. If you've got somebody who's into that, whether it's a student or faculty or staff. So we can dig more deeply into these in Q&A if people want to share. But let me just stop and see what questions people might have for us. But again, I guess the idea, I didn't really finish this idea, was if we can reach out to, let's say, a dozen teachers at your school, or 20 who really care about climate change but aren't talking about it yet, and give them the tools to talk about it in their classes or coming together in a teach-in setting, then you're going to get way more students involved, right? Because faculty are the intellectual leads, and they can talk with their ready-made audiences about climate from their own disciplinary perspective. And again, we can go into more detail about how that actually looks. Any questions? And then we can turn over to hear about the Shippensburg event this year.
Hi, Iban.
Yes.
And everyone, I am Charlotte, and I'm joining in for the first time. I'm a senior lecturer in ecology in the University of Lagos in Nigeria, and I'm actually interested in this teaching, but I don't know how to, I haven't already made audience, right? But I don't even know how to start.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, what we would be glad to do would be to schedule just a one-on-one conversation with you, and we can strategize about really ways to do that most effectively. I can take you through some ideas here as well. Let's use the time to do that. But if you've got more questions, we would really be glad to sort of brainstorm with you and figure out the best way to get folks at TESHI involved. We do have a proposal from your university for a $1,000 grant to do some climate education. And I'll connect you with the people, if you don't know already, Gideon, who have some ideas.
I'm currently in Spain, so that's why I may not even know,
okay, good.
What's going on there right now. Yes.
All right, let's have that conversation. So let's turn it over now to Marianne, and she can tell you what she's done and is doing this year, and maybe that'll give you some ideas.
Yeah, again, I'm Marianne Leidig. I work for the Center for Land Use and Sustainability, which is one of 3 centers of excellence at Shippensburg University in central Pennsylvania. And we came to the party late last year. So in our case to just put something together, we invited and had a faculty panel at noon with opportunities live and via Zoom. And students had the opportunity to participate. It was very well received because faculty, obviously, as Ivan said, are the intellectual leaders. So it was really well attended, cross-section of disciplines. After that, at 3 o'clock, we hosted a Zoom-only session with the Environmental Law Center in New Mexico, which again was fascinating. And we had a room full of students and faculty at Shippensburg with this remote location that went over very well. And then in the evening, we had a community panel from a diverse cross-section speaking about health equity. We had somebody from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and we had a person who was just an expert on communication. And again, students attended that. Some evening classes actually made that part of their class. So we had a really diverse day, but very heavily panel focused. The students seemed to like that because the panels were short. It was sort of an experiential, like, how have you dealt with climate in your career, or what do you want to share about climate and justice and equity? And it was just fascinating. We kept those presentations to about, all told, with conversations between the moderator, a little bit of a discussion and Q&A with the audience. It was was about a 30-minute presentation with about 30 to 35 with about a 25-minute conversation, and students really spoke up and asked really great engaging questions. They seem to like that format a lot better, hearing a little bit, being able to bounce off what they've heard, being able to ask really thoughtful questions. And we even took questions off of the Zoom session. We would ask people to put things in the chat, so it was very interactive. This year, we started a little bit earlier. We were able to send an all call out to faculty prior to the holiday break in December. Didn't get a lot of responses, only had about a handful of faculty, but have really invited them and engaged them to, if they didn't want to volunteer themselves to be part of a session, that they would at least incorporate it into their classroom. And we have feedback that people will do that, but don't want to step forward and speak. So the faculty across the university are aware of it. We sent an immediate follow-up very early in January prior to our classes starting, as a reminder. So again, asking them to do that and to give us feedback and to ask us for help if they needed help in their specific discipline, gave them some examples. We did ask for faculty again. We're going to repeat the model. So at noon, we have this year, our moderator is actually from the psychology department. We have someone from biology, someone from geography and our science, and another person from human communication who also teaches women's studies. She talks about the global impact of women in the climate crisis. So that'll be fascinating to have her. I was really glad she stepped forward and volunteered herself. So we'll do that again with the short format and a lot of Q&A. We run that for about an hour from 12 to 1. That's a common time at the university, so students are not in class, so that allows them to participate. We have not set our 3 p.m. panel yet, but we have a couple. We're either going to go in the direction, there's somebody from Germany that our director is speaking with right now. If that doesn't work out, and I can't remember what their specialty is, we're going to actually we're hoping to do something with food access and food equity and how the crisis is impacting people, especially in the central Pennsylvania region. We have some pockets of real poverty, especially with food access. So that's one of our ideas for that 3 o'clock. That is not set. 6 p.m. we are set. We always bring in community members. We have the Director of Science and Stewardship from the Appalachian Trail Conservancy speaking on the panel, the Director of Applied Climate Science from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and the Vice President of Government Affairs from Penn Futures, so all Pennsylvania based. Will actually be on campus. Again, all of these will have a Zoom option, again, just so we can get our reach a little wider. We were surprised at how many people tuned in from Zoom. We really advertised that heavily and had, alumni, interested people who just wanted in the community to engage but aren't able to be on campus. Some people still with COVID, restrictions or just not able to be on campus. So that was very successful. And I'm trying to be brief. The very last thing we've added this year, because we felt we were missing that student component, and I thought long and hard about this, we're going to actually be in our student union building from 10 to 1. We've invited 5 groups from campus to table and have their materials available of what students can do on campus and how they can be involved if they are from a discipline that may not be climate heavy, that they can be involved in. Our center will have one, the Center for Land Use and Sustainability, because we're not on campus, we're downtown. We will have a table. The College Farm will have a table. Green League, which is our student sustainability group, will have a table. We have an initiative that was started by students, which is called Ship Composts. They will also be on tabling. They were started from the business school, had this idea of taking food waste from the dining hall and getting it in a usable form to the farm. We can talk hours about that. It actually has happened, and we have a food pulper in the dining hall now with Aramark, and we're actually composting some of the portion of the food waste right now and hope to get that up on a larger scale. And then the last table is really fascinating for us. The Fashion Archives, which is a separate entity at Shippensburg, would like to have a table as well to talk about upcycling clothes, mending clothes and things like that. So we'll have that going for a couple of hours in the Student Union building. So we just kind of dive into the process and do it the best way we know how. It's not necessarily all in the classroom. Most of what we're organizing is outside of the classroom, but with the hopes that people are doing their part in the classroom as well.
Thanks, Marianne. And I apologize for sharing my screen and bouncing around all kinds of stuff while you were talking. I didn't realize that I was doing that, of course. So basically, for people who are new, there's two approaches to the teach-in. One is you could do some kind of all-campus event where you bring everybody together. And as Marianne suggested, really trying to focus on getting people engaged in discussion. So as opposed to a top-down keynote or a lecture or showing a movie that's very passive, how can you create formats where faculty and students in particular can have a chance to talk about how they can use what they're learning to solve climate change, and it's everybody. It's artists, it's psychologists, it's chemists, it's lawyers, it's business people, it's economists, it's sociologists, it's everybody, right? Because there's a role for everybody and talking about that. And we have lots of models on our website and suggestions of panels, but the basic model is get a panel of 4 faculty who care about climate change and are eager to talk about it, have them each talk for 5 minutes as a psychologist or as an artist or as a chemist or as a historian, and then open it up for student conversation. So that's what we call our 3-hour teach-in model. You also want to have some solutions-oriented conversation there. So if you can bring in some people from the community or who are also working on this stuff, or talk about what your university is doing. So that's model number one. The other model we call hashtag Make Climate a Class. And this is about bringing climate change into the classroom. We like this model because it's a great way to touch way more students. If 10 faculty do this, you're already engaging 200 or 300 or 400 students, right? Depending on the size of the classes in this dialogue, without having to bring anybody together. But once again, the vision there is, I'm teaching a European history class, right? Or I'm teaching a chemistry class. It doesn't have anything to do with climate change, but I'm going to take a half an hour and talk about how historians are rethinking history in the light of climate. And what can history tell us about climate change? Or I'm going to take a half an hour and talk about how chemists are really helping pioneer solutions to, capturing carbon from the atmosphere. Or I'm a musician and I'm going to talk about, why there aren't any climate change anthems, why there really aren't any climate change movement songs, and we really need one. So everybody can do that, and then we've got lots of students thinking about climate change from all of these different disciplinary perspectives. Faculty feeling like they can own this, that they can be part of the conversation over the long run, and trying to get everybody out of their turtle shells and into thinking constructively about solving these problems instead of in a state of kind of collective global despair. So those are the two basic options. It's a university-wide event that typically involves faculty panels, but could have comedy or theater as some options that we're developing for people, and or a faith component. So if you want to get your chaplain involved or your imam or your rabbi to have some kind of faith-based piece as well. So those are the all-campus dimensions, and then the other side is this: how do we push this out into the classroom, which is, potentially easier for people. They don't even have to go anywhere. They just have to devote half an hour of their syllabus to the conversation. And that's what I was looking for with this share screen thing. And I'm glad to share this with everybody. So this is BART is part of a thing called the Open Society University Network. It's a consortium of about 20 universities. And we created an ocean-wide opportunity to sign up for this thing called Make Climate a Class. And this is a description of that process. And basically it says, take 15 minutes to talk about how your field is contributing to climate justice and climate solutions. And then take 15 minutes to actually find somebody who is a professional historian or chemist or economist or artist who is working in this space, and just bring them into the classroom and have like a conversation with them about what does it mean to work on climate change, from this disciplinary perspective. So glad to share these resources with you if you want to both push the Make Climate a Class opportunity, as well as be part of a small team kind of organizing something that's more college or university wide. Okay, for the new people, what is confusing here still? How can we help? Any questions? Charlotte or Richard?
Well, that was very interesting what you just described. I need to dig in,
Probably digest it, yeah.
dig into it. How a lot of what you've just presented is available on the website, is that correct?
Yeah, the website has got lots of great resources. So if you spend some time with it, you can get a good sense of it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I need to do that before I can, so I don't ask a lot of redundant questions. I guess maybe you could comment, you mentioned something about the number of students. You're trying to, if you take a university campus, you're trying to involve as many students as possible. That's a fair assumption?
Yeah, so for example, at Bard last year, we had an all-campus event that involved somewhere between 150 and 200 students. And it was the model of, we had 20 faculty scattered out around, 2.5 hours of panels, with, each faculty member talking for 5 minutes. And similar to Marianne's thing, there's lots of time for student discussion. We had a dinner beforehand as well. This year, we're going to have, the model is going to be, we're going to have kind of a community mocktail hour, where we're going to bring in people who are working on climate change to just meet with students informally. Then we're going to have an inexpensive, soup and bread sort of dinner with a short keynote, and then breakout groups led by faculty. And the first question in the breakout group is going to be, how are you feeling about, climate change? A, I can't sleep at night. B, don't think about it very much. C, excited, ready to engage. Or put another way, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being, I'm in complete anxiety all the time, and, 0, I don't think about it at all. Where are you, and where do you think your friends are and why? And so really have a conversation about disengagement and engagement, and with some, prompts that will then take people into action-oriented discussion ideas. So we'll have breakout group leaders to sort of facilitate that kind of conversation. So that's the model we're going to use this year. It's going to be a little bit less disciplinary based and a little bit more, how are you feeling about climate change? And let's talk about ways to engage and get others to engage.
Okay. Separate question regarding date. You target date is March 19th, but there's some flexibility there. Can you comment on that?
As much flexibility as you desire.
Yeah.
It can really be any time throughout the month, and it can take any form. We'd love it if you could get hundreds of students involved, but honestly, if it's only 20, that's a teach-in. And maybe those 20 are going to be the people that are going to change the world.
Yeah, and March 29th is the target date, but the reason for having that date is just that there's a certain efficiency for us in terms of working together with people, and it makes each teach-in more powerful by saying we are part of this global activity, and we're having, several hundred teach-ins on that day, et cetera. So, Charlotte, you had your hand up. Why don't you go ahead, please?
Yes, thank you. I don't have any problem with the second one, which is the campus one. I think I'm already doing that minimally. Of course, my specialty is not, strictly climate change, but I sort of bring that into my classroom. The major challenge I have is the first one, which is the off-campus model. And how, I'm trying to start a project with some people in the UK teaching climate change to children. But trust me, we don't even know how to start. I'm trying to develop a proposal for that. We want to make it we want to start small and then see how we can extend that across the UK. But we are stuck on modalities, ideas, how to be practical. So that's where I really have a problem, the first one. And like you have said, video panels, but that is still high level, right? So yeah, that's.
Well, are you at a session, or where are you actually? You're physically going to be in the UK?
So I go to the UK often, but presently I'm in Spain. I have a research fellowship in Spain. But okay, so I am part of the British Ecological Society Climate Change SIG.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking in terms of your teaching, are you based at a university in Spain this spring?
Yes, it's a university, but I don't have access to students here because it's a research. Okay. It's in yeah.
We've been doing a lot, as David has just put in some information in the chat. We've been doing a lot with educators, mostly US based, who are focusing on climate curricula for young people. So one thing you could certainly do would be with your colleagues, just schedule a webinar as a teaching option to talk about, UK climate education. And that would be a teach-in. We'd be happy to have that and count that as a teach-in.
Right.
But yeah, we've had some great conversations. Here's some great resources that David has listed of stuff that's been that's coming in the US sort of space for K-12 climate education. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you.
I have a question. Two questions. One is I'm focused on the university, but long story short, I also have some good contacts with some local high schools.
Sure.
Sounds like you're very open to high school level or even younger. So I could inform those schools and introduce them to the program. Correct?
Please do. And one thing you consider would be, if you're having something at Fairfield, I'm sure your admissions program would love it if high schools could get involved with whatever was happening on campus, right? It's a great way to bring in climate activists and climate interested students from the high school into Fairfield and, get excited about what's happening on the university level. But yeah, we welcome, you can have a teach-in at a K-12 school, K-8 school, high school. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. That's a great idea.
The main thing is tell them to come to one of these sessions if they're interested.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that idea. Okay, and then maybe I just wanted to ask you, and I have to, like I said, I have to do some studying here, look at your resources, but it's very exciting and seems extremely well organized. So that's encouraging. I just wondered if you could elaborate a bit more on the all-campus event. I'm looking at my notes. Let me put it a different way. You talked about a panel and let's just say roughly a 3-hour session where where faculty members are on a panel and then you break out. Can you, do you prefer that over the classroom approach, or should we try to do both? I mean, can you just elaborate a bit on that?
They're different. They're sort of the same idea, but they're sort of either distributed or centralized.
Yeah.
So last year we did the centralized version, and like I said, we had like 20 faculty, and it was great, and the energy was super, and we've got, you know, very concrete suggestions on the website of panels, how to put those together, and you know, this year at Bard, we're moving to the Make Climate a Class model. And it's not, you know, I think, you know, as Marianne said, it's, you know, people don't just, yes, I want to, you know, you've got to do a little bit of pushing. And Marianne, here, our provost has gotten behind this, and that's helped. So there's a letter that came out from the provost, and I can send you a copy of that if you're interested, sort of encouraging people to participate. And that lit a fire a little bit. But so we've got 22 faculty members now doing this, and we probably will have 40 before we're done, which means we'll be touching, figure 800 or 1,000 students, right? At least with this conversation. So you can get more students involved if they do it through the classroom.
Yeah.
But it is energizing, and maybe the first time through, bringing people physically together can be pretty powerful too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll look at the materials, because I'm curious with breakouts how you have a meaningful, like, 2-hour session of breakouts, how you orchestrated that.
Let's see what we got here. Let me just go to this is a 3-hour teach-in model here. So you open that baby up, and then there's a long, probably, document here, which is going to go into a lot of detail about how to host a 3-hour teach-in.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, so build your panels with our template.
Yep.
So yeah, so you can see, for example, a session on climate injustice, a session on climate science, what you need to know, a session on winning the story war. So that's where you have your literature and communication and your philosophy and religious studies people, global solutions, local perspectives, cities, dealing with climate depression, more art, more literature, climate solutions, energy, agriculture, forests, what can we do? So that lot of detail there, a lot of help organizing that sort of thing.
So some of these things would be, there'd be a panelist, and then these different topics would each be a breakout?
No, what we do would be, you'd get so like, let's take a look. Dealing with climate depression, it's a panel. And you get somebody from art history or studio art to talk about artists responding to climate change for 5 minutes. Right. Somebody from psychology talking for moving beyond avoidance for 5 minutes. Sociologists, 5 minutes. Literature faculty, 5 minutes. So 20 minutes of talking total, and then 20, 30 minutes of discussion. Marianne's saying, yeah, it was really worked well, because the students can really get involved. It's not passive.
Yeah. So the students in the audience would be asking questions of the faculty members and making comments and so forth. Okay.
Yeah. And the discussion just flows, because you got 4 faculty members there who only got to talk for 4 minutes, which, like, you know, they're like, I can only talk for 4 minutes. Right. So they really want to participate, you know, and so it's a very high energy kind of setting. Yeah.
Okay. That's outstanding. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, that's why the way our campus works, we couldn't do it. We know our clientele. And I think that's the thing, is to know who we couldn't do a 3-hour session in the evening. We'd have people for the first hour and they'd be gone by this. That's just the nature. We're a commuter heavy campus. And we just also know that that's a lot of a commitment. So that's why we sort of broke it out and did the 1-hour panel at noon. That hit people who were on campus. And if we could do it, we just know that they're not early morning students. We would do, you know, a 9 a.m., a noon, a 3 p.m., a 6 p.m. sort of allows us to break that 3 hours up so that people who could and can't attend. And then we record everything. So we have a YouTube channel, and all of our recordings, and we sent this in as well, all our recordings from last year are up on our YouTube channel. So panelists this year who said, I couldn't possibly, I don't fit in this. We said, well, watch the recording from last year. And then they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I can do that. So I think also having it, if you have that capability to videotape it and house it somewhere, also allows people who can't come to the noon one, but could come to the 3 o'clock one, can go back and watch the noon one.
Great. Any other questions? Good. Well,
I just want to again emphasize that it's really important to get students involved in your organizing, and so we're usually we do have these webinars on Wednesdays at this time, but then, as Tobias said, on Thursday the 9th, we're going to have special sessions for students that are going to be more, how students can get involved in organizing the teach-ins at their institutions, or to talk to friends at other institutions and things like that. So please, encourage at least one student from your university to come to that session, and it's the same times of day, 10 Eastern and 9 p.m. Eastern, and that way you'll get some good student partners who can help you out in this.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you for being here, everyone. We're wrapping up. Important work, and Richard, you're right on. Let other people know about this. 2030 is getting closer by the year, right? Just another calendar year. Emissions are going up. They're not going down. A lot of good progress. I mean, amazing things happened in 2022, especially on the policy front in the United States, and a bunch of different states, California, Oregon, New York, a lot of good stuff happening. But we need to, as educators, we're all busy, right? We're all busy. We got a million things to do, but we've got to, this is the time, right? We get it. We understand how serious the issue is, and we have to take advantage of the fact that our colleagues also get it, right? That they're worried, that they're frightened, and we need to give them opportunities to help students move beyond despair to repair. So thank you for your leadership and the work you're doing, and we're here to help. We're here every Wednesday at 10 and at 9 p.m. So look forward to supporting you guys. And glad to chat anytime. So Charlotte, we can have a further conversation offline as well. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.